Oakland Rising is an anchor organization to a statewide coalition called, or alliance called California Calls. And with California Calls, or for short, Cali Calls, we do voter engagement across the state. And so we're one of 11, I think, anchors, and everybody's talking about one of the same issues that we're talking about, but then we also all have our local question that we talk to voters about that has to do with, where we are located, and Oakland Rising is participating in that. We're in the middle of it right now. We've been in it for about 3 weeks. You may have seen our folks knocking on doors in District 7 and District 5 in the afternoons. And so it's a statewide process. And we're doing this, y'all, so that we can build up a voter supporter base of 1 million voters. We could sustain that until 2024, until November and beyond, right? Because this is what power building looks like. We talk to thousands of voters locally and combine that with other folks statewide so that we're moving this work together. But Vernetta, you want to tell us a little bit about what the daily team is and what they do? And yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so the daily team, we're out, as Liz said, in District 5 and District 7, and we're knocking on voters' doors, and we are building relationships with our community and to let them know how important it is to exercise their rights and to keep them kind of inclined on what's kind of going on in our city around our political realms. And with that, it's been amazing. I mean, we've talked to all folks of all types of walks of life. And yeah, some interesting things has been definitely going on in those streets, let me tell you. But those are our streets, and we love them, and we definitely here for change. And so it's definitely, we know the importance of, being at those doors and having those conversations with our voters, because it's necessary and it's important.
Yeah, appreciate that. And, both of you all are repping this We Are California. Like P, you want to tell us a little bit about what is We Are California and why we're really repping that?
Yeah, besides the fact that, it's a cool thing to say. The hood and you want to be like, we is, but it is we are. Yeah, that's the proper way. So We Are California is our statewide campaign. We're really out here doing a couple of things. One, just really trying to identify that California is majority people of color, right? Majority Black, majority Indigenous, majority immigrants, majority formerly incarcerated individuals, right? Though it feels like voters are, typically not us, right? If we actually build and combine our power from coast to the deserts, from the farmlands to the Central Valley, from the inland empire we don't all get a chance to go to every once in a while, but if we combine our power across all of California, we actually have more than 1 million voters who are able to really set a very beautiful future for California and to really, do the thing that we absolutely have to do, which is put in check the unimaginable wealth that is being used in our democratic process and our electoral process to really keep corporations rich and to keep us without the things we need, like housing, without living wages, and without the investments in our programs and services across the state that actually do help us have neighbors that look like us, breathe and act like us, and share our same values. So that's We Are California in a nutshell. I'm probably missing some key components, not really, but that's what it is. And so part of what we do when we're out educating voters is really listening to the issues that folks are having with how corporations basically prioritize profits over people, right? And how that really disproportionately impacts our communities most, right? With the high rise in groceries, that's my main issue. The cost of rent, right?
That right there.
Right, the cost of gas, right? All of these things that we are living and breathing, needing as our basic, needs every day are really controlled by these big corporations, right? And really controlled by their desire to just make profit, regardless of how it hurts our communities, regardless of how it hurts our future. And so We Are California is our battle cry. It's our call to really reclaim our state that we built, right? Because together we are California, right? We are what makes it amazing, colorful, and desirable to live in, to be frank, right?
That's right. That's right. And I feel like that I just want to go back to we are not only thinking about locally, but like globally, right? Like this is real. Those corporations are here in the United States, but they're wreaking havoc. So as we're watching thousands of people dying in Palestine, thousands of people dying in the Congo, thousands of people dying all over because of war, like those corporations are making billions of dollars off of death. So it's similar, y'all, like those folks that they're making money off of our communities here in Oakland, they're making it also globally around the world. And so appreciate that framing, because like the We Are California is like a lot of us tend to think, oh, it's just that those folks over there have power, those folks up there on the hills, or those, rich white folks over here or over there, that those are the actual ones that have the power. When in fact, if you look at our city charter, you look at our, charter, at the top of that is Oakland residents. That's who runs this city, right? That's what's up, right? And so like, that is something that I think we have to also remember is like, we actually are the ones. 60% of Oaklanders are renters. 60% of Oaklanders live in the flatlands. 60% of Oaklanders are working class, folks of color, Black, Indigenous, Asian, right? The myriad of our Arab brothers and sisters, our Latina brothers and sisters across the diaspora. Like there's like so many languages spoken in Oakland, right? Like this is who actually is Oakland, and we're the same across the state, right? It's similar across the state.
That's right.
So
yeah.
So Vernetta, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about like what we're talking to people about. Like, so we're talking about We Are California. We're asking folks to like join that and be like part of the We Are California movement, and join a voter base that's going to come out and really vote for some progressive policies in 2024 and 2026, and then on and on and on. But I'm wondering, what specifically are we talking to folks on the statewide level? And then we could talk about what we're saying locally.
Yeah, on statewide, we just want folks to understand that like this is not like some type of coincidence. This is a bigger picture. Our corporate real estates have a goal and a plan, and it's going to be for us. It's going to be up to us to kind of come together, congregate any spaces. We Are California, to make sure that we kind of put a hold to these things, like who is standing up to them. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to stand up to them and let them know like, hey, we're not going to just accept this anymore. It's been going on and we caught wind of it. We want to stop it. It's tearing our communities up. It's tearing our communities down. We're displacing our family members, ripping us apart from each other. And we speak about that all the time in other capacities, but we never think about it in this capacity. And it's real and it's hurting. And the community is definitely crying out for help. And so we just want them to know, like, we need them as well, like you said, to be a part of this. We are Californians, so we can, be in those spaces to make change.
That's right. And so what folks need to know is that in 2024, in the November ballot, there's a big statewide proposition. There's many that are happening, but the one that is a big concern for us, because we know what that impact is going to have is in our communities mostly, is the California Business Roundtable has qualified a ballot measure that will change our tax rules. So y'all, we've been making some big wins on issues. We've been making big wins on housing. We're making some big wins on incarceration or decarceration. We've been making big wins on worker protections. There's just been a lot of wins on the issues, the things that that concern us, that, touch our lives. But these folks are trying to change the rules, right? So there is a rule right now, when you pass a local tax measure, you can either pass it by what's called a simple majority, by 50 plus 1% of the voting like the voters who vote, or you can win it at a super majority, 2/3 majority. And it depends on locally how that happens. But it gets a little complicated, but there are some measures that we've passed in the past, that we've already passed, that we're collecting tax on, y'all,
right,
that give us revenue. That's who gives our city revenue, is taxes. It's one of the biggest base of money is coming in from our taxes. So this is things like, parcel tax, it's like parking taxes, this is like all kinds of hotel tax, there's different taxes. And those have to be approved by voters. And our voters in Oakland have continuously been generous, so generous with their money, right?
Absolutely.
Paying very high parcel taxes, paying high, residential taxes. Like, there's a lot of this. And corporations continue to just live off of us, right? In that way.
Yes.
So this would change it so that all tax measures locally across the state, but they need to all be passed by the supermajority, by 2/3 of the voting, like the electorate that comes out to vote. Right. And so, and then that's not it, y'all.
Nope, that's not it.
If you already have these that passed at 50 plus 1, it eliminates it all. So those revenue to our city and our counties that have been coming in are going to be lost. So you think this $345 million deficit we faced in Oakland, where they cut parks, they cut services to housing, they cut services to arts and culture, they cut services, we got taxed, we took out a bond measure so that we could cover our, do our infrastructure and pave our streets. That, all of that we took cuts for. And side note, the police didn't take no cuts, but we took all the cuts. Who do you think is going to take more cuts? We're going to have to take those cuts again, right?
Yeah.
And so,
and if we ever, I think that, not only will we have to take those cuts, but then if we ever say, oh, wow, these cuts are too dramatic, we would then have to have 2/3 majority in the future to really restore any kind of tax revenue. So I think it's not only that it would immediately.
And those tax measures that get passed, even at the supermajority, have to be voted again every 10 years.
That part.
We got to spend our money to constantly ramping this up. And it is a way for, developers, the rich, the right to really, and corporations to continually benefit off of this, because that impacts us. It doesn't impact them.
Not at all.
It doesn't impact them.
Not at all.
They're not paying more. They're in fact probably going to end up paying less.
Yeah.
Right? Our progressive business tax, we might be looking at every 10 years trying to renew that, and our corporations flaking out on it so that they don't have to pay their fair share while they occupy our city, extract, continually take profits out of our town. Come on, y'all.
Right. And I think the other piece that I think we all understand is that there is another way, right? If corporations paid their fair share, if they paid their employees their living wage, right?
Right.
Because I think that folks don't comprehend all the time when we say profit over people, right? So let me just break that down for a second. That means that a corporation has tried to minimize their cost so much so that they'll make a profit no matter
Yeah.
what, right? So that means that they're going to try to pay their labor the least amount of resources. They're going to try to make sure that the labor doesn't unionize because they don't want to have to pay living wage.
Benefits.
They don't want to have to pay benefits. So then that means that the majority of corporations in California, when they are posting these record profits, ultimately what they're saying is we're not trying to ensure our employees have health care. We don't care if they end up having to take Medi-Cal or Medicare, right? We don't care if they have to end up taking SNAP food benefits because their wages are so low that they qualify. We don't care if they don't have affordable housing because that's not our responsibility. That's what profit over people mean. That's what we go out and educate voters on, not to convince you all. Like, this is not something we're making up, right? And I think that's a big piece of like the, rhetoric out there, the ideology out there is, oh, you're going and telling people to believe this. No, this is people's straight facts. These are things you can go and look at people's 990s.
Right.
You can look at people's 1026s. I might be getting some of these tax form codes wrong, but you can look this up, right?
Right.
You can look up how much profit corporations are. And you can look up how they use that profit. And one of the things that we've been doing when we're doing our education for our daily team is really, and for volunteers, is we're really saying, like, we actually know how much money, how they're using their profit to rig the rules in their favor in California, because we can track their contributions to political campaigns. We can track their contributions to ballot initiatives. We can track their contributions to spending against our campaigns that are for in the interest of the people, right? We look at the things that we've tried to do: rent control, schools and communities first, affirmative action, reform our criminal justice system because we got so many investigations federally, at the state level, locally. We still got a death camp over in Santa Rita that we don't want to have a conversation about, right? When we're looking at who is on our government officials, our elected officials, when we're looking at what legislation makes it through at the state level, we are looking at folks who are being supported by these corporations, lobbied by these corporations to essentially not serve the people, right? Not serve the majority, right? So I think that that's the piece that, like, we all, see it. We hear it. We talk, I always say there's the living room conversations, and then there's the hood, conversations, right? And our role in going out and talking to folks is to encourage them to actually not just have those conversations in the living room, not just have those conversations on the street, right? To not just say, man, it's so expensive to live here, and I don't know if I'm gonna survive and I don't make it. Our role is to say, actually, you can make it if we stand together, if we come together and really acknowledge that our shared pain is because of the greed of these corporations, and acknowledge that actually we are all interdependent and need each other. We need to be able to stand together and demand there's accountability, because I don't get to skip paying my taxes.
Right.
None of us, Liz, you don't get to skip paying your taxes.
I do not.
Vernetta,
They actually come after me if I do.
Right? The average individual in Oakland, the average resident, is not skipping paying their taxes.
Right.
We don't get rules in our favor. We don't get our elected officials saying, oh, things are really tough for the people of color, people, the poor people, the working class.
Our elders and our children. And that's where the daily team come in at, and we have those conversations with our voters so they know those numbers, right? Because when we see these things, it changes, right? The conversation changes now because we're looking and we're showing them the facts. We're showing them the stats, right? Because we have them. We're giving it to them at the doors. And then now we want to do exactly what you said, and that is have our officials become accountable. This is the objective goal. Exercise our rights. Don't be quiet about it. Let's go have those conversations, but like not in our living rooms, not in our neighborhoods. We have to go where these officials are at, and we have to make some noise.
That's right. That's right. And I think, like, you know, it's one thing to just like be talking with your neighbors, right? It's another to activate people to actually move towards action, right? And I think that many, 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 many decades, if not the history of this entire country, is built on leaving certain people's voices out of the system, right? Like if we talk about, you know, and we will every day of the week say voting is not enough, right?
Yes.
But we will also say and acknowledge that we are doing this work on the shoulders of our ancestors who have died to just have the right to vote, right?
Yeah.
And like we can't ignore that. We can't ignore all the ways that this government has done what it has done to prevent particular people from voting.
Yeah.
Right.
So engaging the ability to just come out and vote is the minimum, y'all. It is just the minimum. It is the first thing you can do. And then after that is doing exactly what Vernetta is talking about, is being able to like voice it at City Hall, voice it with your city council member, voice it with the county board of supervisors, voice it out there, not just with our vote, but with our participation.
Yeah.
Because democracy is about participation. It's not just let me make a vote and that's your democracy. That's your electoral system.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It is not your democracy, right? And so, like, I appreciate really the framing that y'all are coming with this. And I'm, you know, we're also talking though, like talking about equitable democracy.
That part.
We're talking also to what's the big buzzword right now is recalls. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. And the ways that it is used right now, right? It was like this like safety mechanism possibly with the electoral system, but it is actually now being used by the right. They're using it to their advantage. And there are, 23, 24 recalls committees. These are like established committees across the state. They are filed. They are raising money to run recalls across the state to move us. And some of y'all know, because you all have been around long enough, like we have, or I have, I should say. Just at least let me identify myself. We used to be a red state. Like we used to be super conservative. You all think
Conservative.
Yeah, people came to California thinking, oh, what, this is where it's like this liberal state, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And it was not long ago, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
It is within my lifetime that I saw it as a different thing. And because of organizing that we've done in the community, all the social justice movements, we've been able to move this state blue, right? And now that is under attack.
Right.
And so we're talking to people about that. And Pecolia, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why we're talking about it and what we're talking to them about.
Well, I think the biggest reason is, to say we want equitable democracy, we want to make sure that everybody is able to equally participate, right? Mm-hmm. That's the minimum, right? And I think that part of what's happening in our recalls is that it is a small minority of individuals, voters, who get to then call into question who won an election, call into question whether someone is qualified or not, or should have the ability to fulfill their term, right?
Right.
And that raises a lot of questions when you then find out that there's millions of dollars behind these attempts, and that they're very targeted on individuals who are pushing
There you go.
pushing a certain conservative agenda, who are then targeting elected officials who have been just recently elected, not even had a time to even settle into their terms, who are being really targeted in ways that we feel is just unfair, right?
Right.
And I think another thing is just really making sure that individuals understand that recalls are, ultimately seen as special elections. And special elections cost us a lot of money. And in a time where we're trying to recover and get beyond recovery, we really have a challenge with how much resources are being diverted from our regular elections, from our programs and services, to be able to run these active recalls across the state, right? Um, and then I think the other thing that like folks are starting to realize that, yes, we want to get all of our folks, especially our working class folks and our formerly incarcerated folks, to vote, right? That is really the minimum participation that we are aiming for when we're out educating folks about elections. However, when you are saying, oh, and here's another election, oh, here's another election, because you're able to just put recalls on the ballot by gathering, sorry, I keep getting a call. When you're able to really do that, you're exerting a strain on our voters, right? And you're causing lower voter turnout because you're asking people to come to more than the standard elections, right? So we have a primary and a general in our presidential election years, and in those odd years, we usually have a general, right? And that fatigue is really causing a lot of confusion. It's making the democratic process really confusing for folks. And ultimately, it just makes everybody, both progressives and conservatives, spend millions of dollars that honestly can be diverted to the things that we really need to be addressing in our communities, which is increasing programs and services. So ultimately, in the long haul, when we look at the data, when we look at the effect of recalls, especially in the last 20 years, 2 decades, they've been used in a way that is really making it hard to hold our electeds accountable in the way that our democratic process is designed for us to do. But it's also really costing us way more resources, especially when the recalls are not effectively being executed. And there's lots of opinions that I have on that, but we won't go down that road. That's a future Monday Meals.
But we've been talking about, we've been on the doors for 3 weeks now, right? We've been talking to voters by door knocking with our team, and we've been doing some volunteer walking as well, and then we'll be doing some phone banking now. But Vernetta, can you tell us a little bit about what our daily team has been hearing and what we've been talking to people about, like when we actually talk to them, right? Because then we're hearing something very different, right?
Yeah, we're hearing very different. You guys are hearing us say, oh yeah. Folks are just not, a lot of us are not even understanding what is the whole purpose, right? And that's where we do come in at, is to inform our community about this whole recall situation and how, again, why do the recall and why not just exercise our right to have, folks be accountable? Like that's what we're supposed to do, is to have folks be accountable, is our exercising our rights to do that. And so we just want to be at the doors to remind our voters that we elect folks in their seats, and then it is our jobs to have them be held accountable also. You know, like, let's not forget that. And let's not allow anyone to shape our narratives on what we should do and what's needed to be done for our communities. Because like we always say, we know best than anybody because we live in them.
Yeah. And I think it's really one of the things that I appreciate when I'm participating in the debriefs with the daily team. It's like, there are just so many ways that like folks are like, well, what does that look like? How do I hold an elected official accountable? I mean, like there's city hall meet, you know, go to city hall. You can join remotely to see and hear what, you know, what are elected officials doing, right? Their meetings are public meetings. You can make public comment. We've also heard a lot of folks lifting up like, oh, I don't know where to contact this department, or I don't have this issue and I need it resolved in my community. And so part of what we're also hearing on the doors is that, you know, part of the challenge with our electoral system and our local government system is folks don't know how it works. And when how it works, there's the assumption that the person that presents the solution for accountability in the name of a recall is the only way to actually hold someone accountable. And that's part of our role in pushing for equitable democracy, is to also really educate voters on what their democratic participation in the civic process can look like, right? And so we've had people say, oh, I didn't know I could make an e-comment if I can't go to the meeting, or I didn't know I could call in and testify. I didn't know I could call 211 or 311 to get this issue addressed in the community. And so we're also providing folks with minimum basic education around how our civic process works. And we're finding that folks are like, wow, you're the first to come and tell me this is how we do this thing, right? I think that that's something that really startles me as a political director, is that we have to increase the education on how our residents use our city services and use our departments to do their jobs, right? That is how we hold elected officials accountable. And if we find that those departments and those services aren't sufficient, that's how we then drive budgetary process. That's how we drive policy development. That's how we drive accountability, because now we know these are the things that are not functioning for our city to be the, you know, thriving city that it can. And I think everybody wants to be that, but without the education on how to make it possible, some of the false solutions that are being thrown out are just honestly not going to change real life conditions for folks today.
That's right. That's right. And I think like that's an easy, like, let's just do this instead of actually doing the deep work of like working with an elected on creating policy, pushing them to do that, and then being able to find that. And so, you know, we're not talking about any one specific recall right now, y'all. I know that everyone's thinking there was some rumor out there that we're on the doors trying to get people to sign some fake petition for the recall of the district attorney, and that is not true. We're talking to people about the just recalls in general, and how do we use this electoral system to hold our electeds accountable. But you all should know, so the our voting system is through the registrar of voters that is ran through the county. It is not through the city. The city clerk does some stuff here in Oakland, but it is the registrar of voters that sends you your ballot, that sets the dates, that hires people for the poll workers, that collects all of our ballots, that sends them out, that prints them, that does all of that work. So the recall rules are different than what the state has made. So I think it's like there are 13 chartered counties in Alameda County in California. Chartered counties in California, 13 of them, and we are the only one that doesn't follow the state rules.
That's right.
Our special election rules are like completely off. It would literally be impossible to run a recall election legally right now. And I think, you know, that benefits some people by having it not work, right? And so the registrar of voters, Tim Dupuy, who is also the head of the IT department in Alameda County, which to me blows my mind. Yep. Seems like a conflict of interest, but because
Right.
our Alameda County Board of Supervisors likes to do everything behind closed doors, and like it's very opaque and nobody knows what's going on in that county. That anyways, that he finally came with county council going, well, we can't actually run this, so we need to change our rules. So the Board of Supervisors did they kind of did a first reading last week, and they're proposing tomorrow. Is it 10 a.m.? What time is the 10:30? 9:30. There is a Board of Supervisors meeting where they're going to vote to put on the March ballot, on the primary ballot, a special election to change the rules of the recall voting process, the rules here in Alameda County, to match the state.
That's right.
Which means that everybody who collects signatures for petitions have to actually be Alameda County residents. They must be 18 years or older. The number of people that the signatures have to be gathered increases up to like 90,000 or 95,000. It also moves the election to the November general election so that there's more voter turnout. It also eliminates that a candidate can be voted in, but it's appointed by the Board of Supervisors. So I feel a little iffy about that one because I don't trust this Board of Supervisors, but as a system, it's better than actually like having people get elected that nobody knows, that, it's like the rules are all crazy. So having these all line up properly in a way. So we're asking people to go to that Board of Supervisors meeting at 9:30 tomorrow. We're going to be putting out talking points. So follow our social media at Oakland Rising. And also, if you haven't signed up, sign up for our e-blasts. Go to oaklandrising.org and sign up so that you can get our newsletters, so you can get those talking points, and call in or leave an e-comment or show up to the Board of Supervisors meeting. Last week, we heard some wild talk. It was like some super right-wing talk from folks who are like calling for recalls of Pam Price, and hearing a lot of this rhetoric of like, we are going, what was it? Do you remember? We are turning into a Marxist country or state. If we follow the state rules, we are giving up our local control, and that's leading us to Marxism. And it's like, what? It was some wild talk out there. So we need some folks who can show up tomorrow, let them know that you agree with this, that, recalls need to follow. This is good, just good governance, good electoral, equitable democracy pieces that benefit us all, so that we don't have these lawsuits because we don't have the rules lined up properly.
Yeah.
So I know that there's going to be lots of questions about like, how does this affect the current recall ballot? The county doesn't know. We're hoping tomorrow we're going to hear a little bit more from the county council. So show up, find out, and show up. But we're coming to the end of our time, and we want to make sure that people are volunteering with us.
Yeah.
So what are the volunteers for? How can people volunteer? Where and what and how and all of that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So part of the process we would love folks to do is to come to our website, oaklandrising.org/volunteer. You can go there and see how you can join us. We need 20 folks to sign up by this Wednesday to come out and walk with us in the community and door knock. And we also have opportunity where folks can phone bank remotely. I know some people are still practicing social distancing and have health issues that don't allow them to be out in the community amongst us. And we want to also be inclusive. So we do offer virtual phone banking days. And so on that web page, you'll see the dates that we have available. You go ahead and you sign up for the shift that you believe that you can do. And it will meet you there, train you on how to talk to the voters, as well as be able to excuse me, learn how to use the systems that we have in place for you to be able to the softwares on your phone as well as on your computer. So very excited, looking forward to it. We're almost to our goals, but there's some people on here who can help us hit that 20, because for every volunteer, that's at least 10 people we're going to be able to talk to on the doors or on the phones. And so we want to be able to move that forward. Yeah.
So be a part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like that, be a part of beyond voting, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bare minimum is voting, y'all. But this is a way for you to participate in it. And this is a way for those who are uneligible to vote, right, to participate. You can still show up to Board of Supervisors meetings. You can still talk to other voters and influence them because they are part of our communities.
That's
and
right.
Having you there is going to help us a lot. Appreciate you both so much, Vernetta, holding down the daily team. And y'all don't know, while our daily team was walking, there were shootings nearby. One of our daily team members had to there was a drive-by and he had to drop to the ground to protect himself. So we're in these streets the same way as all of us are, right? Yeah. Like the three of us live in East Oakland. Vernetta and I live in deep East Oakland. And so like, that we're part of the community, and it's not like we're outside folks coming in. Mm-hmm. We're like folks who've been in the town and grew up in the town and are talking to our people, because nobody else is. No. Nobody else is.
No. They're dangerous. People don't want to because they're scaredy cats.
We got to get over the fear. It's how we build community, right? And our ability. And so, when we know what's going on, within our community, it becomes our responsibility to make sure electeds know what's going on. But we're not having the right conversations in Oakland, right? We're looking to blame folks instead of come up with the solutions to help people actually put down these guns, help people put down the idea that they can make money on the street. Mm-hmm. That's the conversation that we are trying to get to, because that's the conversation that actually keeps our community safe, gets us to a place where everyone is fully employed and not wants to just survive, right? And so I don't want to vilify folks for the choices that they make. That's I'm not also condoning the violence, but I also know that we have real conversations to be had that I feel like we're not having because we're just interested in blaming folks for doing things.
That's or not. Or what we perceive as having not done anything.
Right.
So appreciate you both. Thank you so much for joining today. We're going to start phone banking. So don't, if you see that number, and they say, hey, we're calling from Oakland Rising, please answer your phone and answer our questions, because they would love to talk to you. And then hopefully we'll see you also at the Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm going to be joining virtually because I'm a little sick, but so folks, please call in, show up, show your voice, and this is how we build people power. Thank you. Have a great day. Go to oaklandrising.org/volunteer, oaklandrising.org/donate if you like the work that we're doing and support the work that we're doing every day.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.